Brisbane is a production that's a real collaboration between Italy and Australia. Giorgio Bastelli wrote the original score. It was based on a film, Miracle in Milano, which was a film in the 50s.
I worked with Giorgio Battistella quite a lot in the past, and I knew about this piece, the Miracolo in Milano, and I realised that it was really the story of Indigenous people that lived on the fringes of any Australian city, if you like. So it wasn't a big leap to adapt that.
So what we've tried to do with the Australian production is give it that Australian perspective, and the Australian perspective for me, of course, is Indigenous culture and the country of Australia, the landscape of Australia. The thing about the production that's incredibly important, I guess also amazingly historical, is the fact that it is an opera. It's working with an orchestra. The majority of the cast are Torres Strait Islander, and taking such a classic use of music and mixing it, fusing it with a classic of Australia, you know, the classic dance and stomp and chants of Indigenous culture.
This was a very strange adventure because it is a very strange adventure because to put together two kinds of culture inside of an Italian opera, it is a challenge, and we changed the score, some parts to leave them space to make theatrical and dance and musical expressions.
It's very, very different to perhaps what a lot of Australians have seen with opera, because it's an unknown opera. It uses all your sensibilities. You can smell it, you can taste it, but you've really got to listen because it's quite a different score. And it does make you think about the landscape.
Wellspring of petroleum on the outskirts of a fine town. Ah, yes, that we can explore it. Yes.
We live on the fringes, and we live on the fringes because it's country, and custodians cannot leave their country. They need to be there, and they live there, even if the city encroaches onto them. They're not necessarily itinerant. They're protecting country. And then the sense of the story with particularly the mother losing her child and then the father, and the despair, but it's the sense of family and community that keep you going. And really, the sort of connection in the story is about kinship and family and that sense of belonging.
Oh, really, the dress rehearsal was last night with the full complement of people, with the choir, and they weren't here this morning. And also Jacapura, who's a wonderful artist, injured his knee, so he had to go off halfway through the piece and go to an acupuncturist. All the sorts of things that are part of making a theatre piece, and they usually happen on the day before or the day of the performance, and so people get a bit stressed and so on.
Whether it's the orchestra pit or it's on stage, it's all about human labour. It's about use of an instrument, which is either your body, your vocals and so forth, or a classic instrument such as a flute or, strings or whatever that is. And people have just gone outside their box and really challenged themselves, and particularly for all the performers, they either come from a dance background or a performing arts background, particularly acting. Everyone's bringing different skills to the piece.
In the arms of the angel, may you
One of the surprising things was we have a group of young students who attend a performing arts school in Brisbane called the Aboriginal Centre for Performing Arts, and a number of them play our chorus line in the production. And it's been those young people who have really grounded me and taught me an enormous sense of being adventurous and listening and those fresh ideas. And I really take my hat off to them. And of course the core cast, they've just been such an amazing team to support me because they bring those skills, and with my skills we've produced this thing that is so new for us. And we often don't get that chance. We often don't get the opportunity in mainstream festivals. We very rarely get that voice.
It's been a wonderful collaboration, I think, in the end, where people have genuinely learned from each other and worked out how to create a piece that doesn't really have a precedent. It's a new form, and finding the methodology to make that form work was part of the process of presenting it.
It's different, it's new, it's exciting. Yeah, we learnt a lot of stuff being here, and actors and people from different areas in the performing arts.
But we've had help from experts like Deborah Mailman for acting. She's helped us, and Tony Briggs, and they've been a big help.
For me, it was wonderful. I discovered a fantastic culture, and I am so happy to have a contact with them. Then after the performance, I leave and I go to the bush with Jakapura.
Celebration in this piece is really the hope, and it is about kinship. It is where we are heading now as a nation. I think there's this incredible momentum in Australia from all Australians. We're really cut the apron strings with England and Europe, and we can stand on our own now. We know who we are as a nation. We really have our own sense of place. But as we move as a nation, we are accepting that there were situations in our past that did occur. But by recognising that past, we can move forward. And of course, with the apology that occurred, we've started to see that in all layers of society. Everyday life now you see it. And it's a real unification. But one of the keys to that unification is that we are now allowed, as a group of people, particularly Indigenous peoples, are allowed to tell our stories, and people are allowed to go, my goodness, that history will never be repeated. But what keeps our hope and what keeps us going, because we've never immigrated. Everything that's happened to us, we stay on country because it's the most important thing that keeps us whole. And so today we see more and more people discovering they have an Aboriginal bloodline, discovering their own personal family histories. And the hope for Aboriginal people, and particularly those mothers and fathers, is there's always the hope that that child will return. And hope is miracle.